everybody! So, as promised, today we are going to talk about exercise and fibromyalgia. So, if you've been missing it, and that's okay, it's fine, it's all there on my timeline so you can have a look. I have been going through some of the aspects that can be used to help improve fatigue in fibromyalgia. So far I've done nutrition, I've done pacing, I've done sleep, and now we're doing exercise, which is my favourite because that's my job. It's what I do. I'm a personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist, and what I do is I help people with conditions like fibromyalgia and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome access exercise as part of a healthy active lifestyle. And that healthy active lifestyle involves loads of stuff, not just the exercise, which is why I've been talking about the other stuff, but now we're onto the exercise, and this is the bit that makes me happy. So, if you have any kind of chronic fatigue issue, you can guarantee somebody has asked you if you've tried yoga. Somebody has probably told you should definitely exercise to help your condition. And I know how annoying that is, because if you're exhausted and you're in pain, the last thing you want to hear is, "Hey, why don't you go for a jog?" Nobody wants to do that. I'm not sure anyone wants to go for a jog anyway, let alone people with chronic illness. But there is a grain of usefulness in there, and that is where we're going. So I'm walking the tightrope here of not being the annoying person that says, just go exercise, but also knowing that exercise is really useful and really good when it is appropriate. And when I've been listing off my things, you might have noticed over the week I've always said appropriate exercise, which is very much up to you as an individual and how you want to do it. So, firstly, we're going to have a look at why we want to exercise to help fibromyalgia and how it can help. And then we're going to have a look at what we can do. And that's all, because I want to be fairly brief, because I know you've got stuff to do. So why should people with fibromyalgia be exercising? Firstly, little caveat, everybody should be exercising. There's lots of reasons why exercise is good for you. Maintaining your cardiovascular health is important. It helps you not have all kinds of diseases and stuff. Maintaining bone and muscle density and connective tissue strength is all useful and good, and resistance exercise helps you with all of those. Basically, it's all good times. Exercise helps you release the right sort of hormones and your neurotransmitters, which give you feel-good feelings and help you support your mental health as well. So there's loads of reasons why exercise is a good idea generally, but I want to focus very specifically on fibromyalgia now, because we all know that stuff, or maybe we don't. I shouldn't really presume that people know this stuff, but let's just take as a given exercise is good for you, everyone should be exercising. Done. Okay, so why do you need to exercise with fibromyalgia specifically? Well, firstly, exercising of any kind trains not just your muscles and stuff like that, but also your metabolism. So when you train to do, say, endurance exercise, your cells learn, or they don't learn, they're cells. Your cells become adapted to releasing energy appropriately for that exercise. So the more you exercise in a particular way, the more your energy systems adapt to be good at that. Now, if you have fibromyalgia, your energy release is not that great to start with. So training it to be better, that's got to be a good thing, right? The second thing I want to think about is reserve capacity. I want you to think of it like this. Imagine you can climb 5 flights of stairs before you have to have a break. Just imagine that. I know for a lot of people with fibro, you're like, 5 flights of stairs? That's ridiculous. But yeah, imagine that's what you can do. If you are capable of climbing 5 flights of stairs without a break, climbing 1 flight of stairs is comfortable. So my aim when training anybody for what we call functional fitness, so the sort of fitness that's going to translate into their daily life, is to make them fit enough that the things they have to do in everyday life, like climbing the stairs to go to bed at night, are only a small portion of their maximum capacity. So they have a reserve capacity. That means if you are capable of climbing 5 flights of stairs, climbing 1 flight of stairs is going to be comfortable for you and it's going to be achievable. So reserve capacity is about making sure that you are fit enough that the things you have to do every day don't feel so hard. And that's important. Now, the other reason why this is important is the backwards version of that. So some people with conditions like fibromyalgia presume that they're degenerative because over time they feel worse. But it's not. The actual mechanisms behind the fibromyalgia are not degenerative. It's not a disease that should get worse as time progresses. You will have good days and bad days and ups and downs, but generally there will not be a trend downwards. But it feels like there is. And the reason it feels like there is because you are becoming deconditioned. When you feel tired and when you're in pain, you do less. And when you do less, your body adapts because your body is amazing at that. Use it or lose it is a really crude way of looking at it. But what actually happens is if you have muscle in your body that you're not using, your body goes, this is a waste of space and energy. We'll take that away. You don't need it anymore. So when you lose that condition and you become less fit, you lose capability as well. So if you started off at the 5 flights of stairs and you then don't exercise or you're not active for a while, maybe your maximum capacity before you'd have to take a break is 3 flights of stairs. Now it's starting to feel harder just to get up the stairs to the bathroom. You leave it a little bit longer because you're tired and you can't exercise and things are getting harder. Now your maximum capacity is 1 flight of stairs. And that means that just going to bed at night is a battle. It feels like your condition is getting worse. It feels like your fatigue is worse. You feel like you're getting weaker. You are getting weaker, but it's not because of the fibromyalgia, it's because you're deconditioning. So my aim when working with people with fibromyalgia is to avoid the deconditioning or to reverse it. Because then you actually start to have more capacity. Now that doesn't mean that the fibromyalgia goes away. It doesn't. It doesn't mean there's still pain, there's still fatigue. But what you're able to do with that is greater. And you'll feel more comfortable going about your daily tasks because you're strong enough to do more than that. The last reason why exercise is super useful for people with fibromyalgia is because of something called post-exercise hypoalgesia, which is one of my favourite things. I've written a whole blog about this. I will try and link it in the comments afterwards. So post-exercise hypoalgesia is a really posh way of saying after you exercise and you feel really good. That's it. But it's a bit more than that. When you actually look into what's happening in the body and how people are reacting when they're experiencing this phenomenon, what's happening is their pain levels are dropping. And people with fibromyalgia who exercise, particularly for cardio exercise, might notice this. I noticed it when I started running and I didn't realise what it was for a while, but for a couple of hours after I ran I felt really good and I didn't understand what it was. And then I looked back and I went, hang on, I'm not in so much pain. Your actual perception of pain is reduced after exercise. Now, the mechanisms of this are slightly unknown. We believe it's something to do with the endocannabinoid system, but that's the closest that any of the research has really gone on it. We know that it happens, we can see how it happens, there's lots of experiments that go, let's do this and see what the outcome is, but the actual mechanisms underlying inside the body are still a bit hazy. But we definitely know that cardiovascular exercise, tends to reduce pain all over the body. It's a generalised pain reduction. On the other hand, resistance exercise tends to produce a more localised pain reduction. Now, if you are a very cunning exercise person, like myself, you can use that to your advantage and you can actually take that information and work it to help somebody's pain be reduced for them on a regular basis. So that is a useful thing, and that's my favourite bit about exercise and fibromyalgia, to be honest, because the actual phenomenon of being with a reduced pain when you've lived with pain day after day is really, really helpful and useful. Now, let's have a think about the appropriateness of exercise, so how we go about it. And I'm going to start by flipping the coin on my last point. Some people, when they exercise, afterwards they get increased pain levels. It's called hyperalgesia, and we might just call it a pain flare. So it's quite common for people to have, with fibromyalgia and similar conditions, to have pain flares after intense exercise. So we want to avoid pain flaring. Now, this is where the whole "you should just exercise, you'll feel better" tends to fall on its face, because when people get the idea that they have to exercise but nobody tells them how, they go out and they do general population exercise, and for some people that works. But for some people that's going to trigger pain flares. Now, if exercising triggers a pain flare, you're going to go away going, "I shouldn't be exercising, it's no good for my fibromyalgia." But what's actually happened is you've been exposed to the wrong kind of exercise, and we need to think about what to do with that. Now, there's been some interesting work on the phenomenon of both the reduced pain and the increased pain after exercise, and there's a fairly comprehensive list of factors has been compiled, and it goes like this. If the exercise is too high intensity for you, you're probably going to flare. If the exercise is of a kind you didn't choose or wouldn't choose yourself, so it's something you don't like doing, you're more likely to flare. If you don't have control over the intensity or duration of the exercise, you are more likely to flare. So basically, if your exercise is hard, if it is enforced on you by someone else, or if it is competitive, or you're trying to keep up with something that will push you beyond your comfortable working level, you are more likely to flare afterwards and less likely to get pain relief afterwards. And this actually falls in line with some stuff that we know about exercise and its general benefits. There's been similar kinds of work done looking at people who have active jobs. And they found that when people are active for their job, when they are pushed and they're not voluntarily active, so they're not taking exercise as a hobby, but it's part of their job and they have to do it, the health benefits of exercise are reduced. And we see the same thing in people with pain conditions and their pain flares. So if you want to exercise to improve your fibromyalgia, this is what you have to do. You have to exercise at an appropriate intensity for you. Now, there are certain rules that I work with when I'm programming for people with fibromyalgia. I don't program people at the peak intensity, so if they're lifting, I don't program in the close max lifts at all. We back off the weights a little bit. We don't do hard sprints where we're pushing at our maximum cardio level either. So we back off to maybe about 70-80% as a max of what we do, and we keep the duration sensible. We don't do anything competitive. We build in rest breaks as necessary. I tend to use a type of programming where I look at how somebody is on the day, and so rather than saying we're going to do this amount of work, or we're going to work at this intensity, or we're going to work at this weight, I look at how they are on the day and decide what is an appropriate intensity for that day. I encourage people to choose modes of exercise that they find rewarding for them. For me, I like lifting. Lifting makes me happy. So lifting is my thing, and that's how I exercise. I also quite like running, and sometimes I will run with that, but I don't do types of exercise that I don't enjoy, because they don't have the effect that we want. And last of all, we talk constantly about how people are going and whether they want to stop, and we keep things comfortable. and workable, and we feed back. People that I train online, they do a feedback form for me every week and say, how has this week been going, and do we need to adjust? I always think that training is a scientific process, by which that means we try something, we see if it works. If it doesn't, we revise it and we try something else. But we always have to be fluid in the way that we work, and we let the client's body lead us, because that's what's important. So if you have fibromyalgia, I would thoroughly recommend exercising. It is the way forward. The rule is we start low and we progress slow. So if you're sitting there now going, what do I even do? Go for a walk. Maybe not right now, it might be the middle of the night. Don't go for a walk unless you can and it's safe. In that case, just go for it. But try walking. See how walking goes. You could try a yoga class, but you don't have to. Yoga's not magic, curable for everything, and don't expect it to cure you, because that's not what it's for. But try something light, try something which you want to do, something that inspires you, and see how it goes. If you find in the aftermath you are too tired, think about your pacing, think about maybe reducing the amount that you're doing, but try and do something. Even on a bad day, do what you can do, which is more than you might have done previously, but not so much that it is a real challenge. You want something that just feels like you're pushing yourself just a little bit. Give it a go. See what happens. If you feel like better for it, do more of it. If you feel worse for it, then take a step back and reappraise. But in my opinion, exercise is one of the most valuable tools in our toolkit for working with fibromyalgia, because it is something that everybody can access on some kind of level, and it has some tremendous benefits.